Hi, this is Tom Harbour, and this is a guide to how I made my debut album, The Things You Left Behind. When I'd started writing the album, I had loads of little ambient pieces just lying around. I love Brian Eno, he's a huge inspiration, so I knew I wanted the record to have an ambient feel running through it. I tried to introduce the themes of the album sonically with this opening track to give you, the listener, a sense of what's to come. When it came to mixing this album, I could not find this project anywhere, so I had to use an old mix and master that version. But I didn't really mind because I kind of liked where it was going. I kind of didn't really have anything more to do with it, so it was kind of lucky really, I suppose. But yeah, I still don't know where that project is to this day. I have a love of albums that start with little intros like this, and I always knew that I wanted to do it on my debut, and all of my records really. I'm interested in their usage and how it makes a person feel and how it makes you invest in the project you're about to hear. It's sort of like an opening scene in a movie. It should grab your attention and keep it and make you want to continue on this journey. Hiding in Your Bones was originally recorded on a rainy Sunday afternoon at my girlfriend's house. We were just chilling and coming up with ideas, and then she started playing the main guitar riff of the song. We built everything on top of that, and we were really excited about what we'd made. It just felt really nostalgic and really dreamy. We were just sat there in our pyjamas, just smiling at each other. It was originally called Vibe Check when we were recording it. I just found that on the project when I was mixing it. Hiding was originally two separate sets of lyrics. I wrote half of them on a plane for a song called Aqua Eyes, but used some of those lyrics in that song for what became the final version of Hiding in Your Bones. I think this is like one of the best tracks I've ever made, with the help of my girlfriend obviously. I think we've made something really beautiful, to be fair. Flowers grow by the lake, and our love participates in hazy days of blue. I cry so blue, and a day may break me, but I've got Runaway Theme. This song came about through a riff that my girlfriend wrote on piano. We actually had used it for a song before that. It was one of the early demos for the record. Unfortunately, that song never made it on the album, but I remember her playing it one day and I suddenly got really excited and said, let's put it on strings. It took a bit of time to get right, but there was many versions and tweaks and edits, and I'll get a bit obsessed over it sometimes, so there was some little tweaks here and there that I really like on it, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Originally I wanted live violins on it, but in the end we settled for high quality but still synthetic strings since it suited the album more. I wanted to make a seemingly simple chord progression sound huge and cinematic, and it took a bit of time, but I think I've achieved that in this. I'm so proud of this. I really love it. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, fuck, you know, like fuck, we did that. Fatal Change was the first song I wrote for this record. I've had the instrumentation for it complete since August 2019. Fatal Change started with this sample from another song called Be My Girl, which I just wrote randomly one day. I never really used it after that, but I liked this synth in it, and you can hear this synth running through the whole of Fatal Change. I didn't really add any effects or make it quieter in the mix, but if you listen you can actually hear it the whole way through like a drone, and I built everything else on top of it. So next I added guitars, and interestingly with this track, it's just me playing guitar, but I'm only playing half the time. I'm only playing one of these chords, and then the next chord you hear is just delay, just giving it back to me straight away through the signal. I think that's what contributes to it being quite relaxing, because I'm interested in the idea of not really being in full control of the sounds that I'm making. I like just sometimes letting the effects you're using just dictate the rhythm or the feel of it. The next thing I added was this kalimba sound, which now that I think about it was probably me missing Christine again. Missing Christine, the album basically. But essentially I gave her an actual kalimba before she left as a leaving present, and I just liked that sound quite a lot, and I think I just wanted to include that in the song. I didn't actually own a kalimba, but I found a really nice plugin of a live kalimba, and utilised it in this track to complement the guitars and the vocals, and just add another sort of layer that isn't really overtaking the song. It's just sort of present, and it's pleasant enough to stay there and just sit underneath the synths. When it came to mixing, you'll hear this as it's playing, but it's panned to the left, and the guitars in the final mix were panned to the right, so it gave it a much more wide feel in the final version. And it just fills that gap between these droning synths, which I really like. Definitely going to be using this texture more. The reason it took so long to complete was I wanted a specific sound for the vocals, inspired by Bon Iver and the Japanese house. You can tell at this stage it was obviously very rough, and not at all what I actually wanted from the final lyrics, the final vox. This just gives you an insight into how we tried to do the effect we wanted as a demo, and it not really working, but it did the job for going forward with the track, knowing what we wanted to do eventually with the auto-tune. We just didn't have that capability at that time. I'm glad we didn't have to go with these takes, because when you compare these takes to the auto-tune vocals, it's just worlds different, so much cleaner and so much more exciting, and I was able to mix them in a much more cathartic way and place them in much more interesting places. Huge shout out to my girlfriend Matilda for helping me engineer these and letting me use your software that you have for this, because it sounds absolutely pristine and amazing, and it's one of my favourite things on the record. It really is. Change. We completed the auto-tune vocals almost a year later, in July 2020. I'm so proud of how this turned out. Now let's hear the final track. Moonlight. Moonlight is another instrumental named after the night I asked my girlfriend out on a bridge in Camden lit by the full moon. Whenever I listen to this track, it brings me back to that moment. Matilda's helped me so much on this record, and so much in my life in general, so I wanted to share how I felt in that moment in a cinematic way. This vocal synth that I used coming up, this choir sound, is like an ode, a little ode to my favourite band, the 1975. It's just a little reference to them, basically, which I really like. Risk It All. Risk It All was the final track I wrote for this album. In fact, I thought the album was done until I made this. Most of the mixing was complete at this stage, so I was just experimenting in Logic. This song is probably my favourite on the record. It displays how far I've come as a writer and producer. It's about battling yourself and battling anxiety. It's also about how I feel things very intensely a lot of the time in my life, so I wanted to put that in song format. I really like the plinky plonky piano in this, which is heard throughout the album in various different tracks. I was inspired by, there's a synth called the OP1, which is a very expensive synth, but the 1975 used it to create this plinky plonky piano kind of thing, and I found a way of designing my own version of that synth in Logic using a scripter, just a preset in the scripter, and it's basically two scripters working together under different parameters, and it creates this little plinky plonky piano that's similar to the OP1, and I really love it. It's one of my favourite things I've ever done. Like, it sounds exactly how I wanted it to sound, really. Runaway Reprise. Runaway Reprise was a piece of audio left over in the project from Runaway Theme. It had been sitting there in Logic, unused. I swapped out some of the instruments and added the same piano sound used on Risk It All. It acts as a palate cleanser after the excitement of Risk It All. Baby Don't Go. Baby Don't Go is a ballad about my girlfriend having to leave to go see her family in Portugal. It's bittersweet because I know she's coming back, but I'll miss her a lot. And I like her being in my house. It's about long distance relationships and the often strange dynamics of not being with someone you love. I really love the bass line that Matilda recorded for this in her house in Portugal, which really did connect with the theme because I had to send her the song while she was there. It was kind of, we were both still connected through music, which is really interesting to me because like it's a love song and we are both literally physically apart as well. This is the only real straight up ballad on the record, and it comes from a very deep place inside my very soul, if you will. No, seriously though, like jokes aside, it actually is quite emotional for me to listen back to this at times because Matilda has to go back home quite frequently and it can really affect my mental state. I don't know, it just is really personal and really fragile, and that's exactly what I wanted from this record. It's so hard to be outwardly fragile and just bear it all in a sense and just sort of tell the world how you feel. It's so hard to do that, but I feel like on this song I did it. I really did just go for it on this. I think it definitely paid off. I absolutely love this song. There's also a theme in there of like just being yourself, just defiantly yourself. Don't let anyone control you or overtake who you are or tell you who you are. Just be you for yourself, you know, like don't let anyone manipulate you. Be you because you want to be you, because you're proud of who you are, because you're unique in your own way and all that stuff. You need to show the world that sometimes, and this is just about that. This song is just explaining that and how difficult that can be in life. Every Time Stars Aligned is essentially about anxiety and not knowing your next steps and not knowing where to go with your life and not knowing who you are and trying to battle that every day, trying to battle your own conscious mind. Just a lot of anxiety in the world at the moment that sort of all boils up to the surface. It was originally a completely different song called Profound, which was written at the start of the album process, and I ended up not liking it as much as I thought I did a few months later, and I chopped all the lyrics up, I chopped all the vocals up and made my breathing into sort of like a snare sound. And that is how the beat of that song came about. I just made a beat using my voice, using my breathing, and then added the synths on top of that, and it felt like this rave almost. It felt like this psychedelic weird rave. I was like, yeah, this is going to be the last track, because you have all this sleepy ambient stuff, and I want to like end off with a bang in a way, and we can all dance and party and laugh and shit. So yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, this kind of end of album celebration rave kind of thing. The title came about when I basically asked my good friend and collaborator, Christine, also known as Polimana. I'd worked with her before on a previous EP where she did some spoken word stuff that I chopped up, and I said, just give me a moment in your life where the stars aligned, or they seem to align in your favour. And I didn't tell her how long it should be, I didn't tell her any other details than that, I just said that. And she came back with this wonderful transcendent story about her first experience with psychedelic drugs.
It's like putting an EQ on yourself, on your sense of self, where you amplify.
And I really didn't want to touch it too much. I wanted to put it on the song, but I didn't want to cut that much out of it. And I still obviously needed it to flow and work with the beat. So I think pretty much like 90% of her story is in there. And I just think it rounds off the record so well.
All the things that made you feel separate from other people, those parts were diminished greatly to the point where you didn't ever think of them as existing.
It's one of my favourite things I've ever done. The day that I finished that track was insane for me. I just felt like I'd fucking won some huge prize, or I don't know, I just felt like I'd unlocked something that wasn't there before, and that's always what I'm searching for when I'm writing music. just bringing something into the world that's exciting and powerful that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. So I think I definitely achieved that on that track, and I love it.
Before, I never really liked to look at myself.
Love Build Me Again. Love Build Me Again originally started out as a demo that had like vocals on it a few months ago. I think it was like February time. I wrote this sleepy little ambient thing on my MIDI, and it felt kind of sonically different to the rest of the album, which I was a bit unsure of. This is like the original demo, so it was basically I transferred the synths that I had on the song originally to strings to better suit the sonic atmosphere of the album. I didn't really touch it much after that. I'd obviously just changed the sounds a bit and added the same piano that's on Risk It All and Runaway, and it kind of glued well much more than the demo did. I took the lyrics off. You didn't really need lyrics when you have these powerful strings, and I think it's sort of like my friend Tom described it as an ode to the album, like it's the end of the album, and it's kind of like this sort of look back at what you've just listened to, what you've just experienced, and hopefully, you know, you've taken it all in one way or another. And it's just a way to close the album in the simplest of ways. It's a very me way to close the album because I'm obsessed with strings. I love string arrangements, not even classically trained or anything. I just love the sound of strings and orchestral things. So I really love that ending. There's not a better ending. I couldn't think of a better ending if I tried. So I'm really happy with how that turned out, and I just love it. I think it's beautiful.